What is good? We're back live. We'll be live tomorrow too, baby. Lock it in. We'll be doing another mock on Wednesday, doing a Dynasty Superflex tight end premium startup mock. So make sure you're locked and loaded for that one. Hope to see you there. Chev, how we doing today?
You know me, brother. Any day on this side of the dirt's a good one.
Yeah, man. Well, today we're going to talk a little news and notes live for your pleasure, of course. Some stuff happening, nothing too crazy, but felt like good Tuesday fodder. We had J.K. Dobbins today. We've had Rodgers sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've had Chubb sign with the Texans. We've had Stroud with some, arm fatigue. We got Trevor with some arm fatigue. We got A-Rich with a shoulder that he's had some problems with before. And then we've got Cook holding out. So we've got some offensive things to talk about. And there's more we could talk about, but these seem to be the biggest issues. So let's jump into J.K. Dobbins, since that's today, and then we'll follow it up with Rodgers. What's good, fellas? How you doing? Go Jin. How you doing, Jason Hall? Ed? Shut up.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah. J.K. Dobbins signs to Denver. If you're anti-Harvey, this is a campus saying I told you so. If you're Harvey, a Harvey apologist, then you're like, it doesn't matter. Listen, I like Harvey. I think Harvey's a good player. I think he went to a good situation. I don't think this has any bearing on how I draft Harvey or what I think about Harvey. To me, this is just more of an indictment on Aldrick Estime and the guys behind him, right? Is this I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so concerned now that J.K. Dobbins is there, that all this workload that I was counting on for Harvey to get. Like, listen, the pass catching is still going to be there for RJ Harvey, and the workload that he was probably always going to get is mostly still there for RJ Harvey. Do you feel differently, Chev?
Absolutely not. I mean, if you were looking for a reason to be out on RJ Harvey, then you were never really in the first place. So my biggest issue,
You
the
never
coolest
had
thing for me,
you never had your car.
Yeah. The coolest thing for me is that now it gives me a chance to draft J.K. Dobbins and get him at an extreme discount, like 1 year rental. And, he's not cooked. He looked pretty good for the first 4 or 5 games. He's probably still getting into football shape after not really playing football for almost 2 years. And so he looked pretty good last year, and he was very usable from a fantasy perspective. And we know that Sean Payton teams are going to run the rock. And is J.K. Dobbins greater than signed Javonte Williams? Yes. So if you're old enough to remember when Mark Ingram played for the Saints and they had Alvin Kamara, like, this worked. And that's exactly what J.K. Dobbins is going to do. Like, right. Is he as good of a pass catcher as Mark Ingram was? Probably not. But Mark Ingram was severely underrated, in my opinion. Yes. But still, this is a different discussion for a different day. The point is, J.K. Dobbins on the Broncos now. It's a fantastic thing for two people. It's fantastic for RJ Harvey. We don't have to worry about him getting 375 touches. And it's fantastic for J.K. Dobbins because he has a home. He's a useful fantasy asset, at least for 2025.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with both of those parts of Dobbins looked fine last year. I know there was some miles per hour. He was in the mid 19s. There's plenty of running backs that have been useful throughout that have been in that speed, Travis Etienne being one of them. Speed is not the end all be all. It can make a big difference, but J.K. Dobbins knows how to operate. It was a big part of J.K.'s, package, but it hasn't been there in a minute. And he's had some injuries. So I think J.K. is still plenty good. I think this is a sigh of relief for Sean Payton. I think he can go, all right, I can take a breath now. I got somebody that is semi-reliable behind this guy who was usable. He was over there with Harbaugh last year. They've obviously overhauled that area. And now, like you said, 1 year rental, J.K. Dobbins. So Dobbins is super interesting to be drafted late here, especially maybe if you even have Harvey, even if you don't. I think the capital is that you're going to have to invest in J.K. Dobbins is probably going to end up being pretty nominal at best. But, the other part is you don't have to worry about RJ Harvey getting 375 touches or whatever. Like, I don't think I was ever worried about that. Like, the way Sean Payton kind of architects his offense a lot of the times throughout his career have been, hey, one guy's going to get, a decent amount of touches and the other guy's going to come in and get some useful touches. But, there isn't going to be one guy who gets an astronomical amount of touches typically. Like if we go back to 23 for the Broncos, that was Javonte, P. Ryan, and Jaleel McLaughlin, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw a 49% snap percentage for Javonte Williams. You saw a 50% snap or 50% attempt percentage for Javonte Williams, with 217 attempts. I think that's more along the lines of rather than what we saw last year, where it was, 52% snap share, 30% attempt percentage, and 139 attempts, right? So had a higher snap percentage in 24, but a lower attempt percentage, and they spread it out between Jaleel, Estime, Burton, and Beatty when he was there, right? And but the targets all kind of were more centralized to Devontae last year in 24, right? You saw an 11.6 target percentage, 66 targets, right? If you go back to 23, you get back to that 50.6% attempt share, and that got you 217 attempts. That's what I'm expecting for Harvey. I think you might even see, like, if I can get Harvey up into that 225 attempt range, and I can see a target share of that 24, Javonte's target share was still 11.6, pretty much exactly what it was the year before, or this previous year, 11.6 and 23, and P. Ryan had 10.5. So I think there's even more room. Harvey could have a 12 to 14% target share percentage of this offense. Now, I do think they've added some pieces in there that maybe could prevent that just a little bit. But even if it's only at the 11%, we're going to see around 60 targets, and around, I think that attempt percentage is going to be around the 50%, if not 55%. And we're going to see 225 attempts. I think that was always kind of what I was forecasting for RJ Harvey. So no concern for me.
The advantage that we have, and I appreciate you hogging all the good points right there, because I was like, that's what I was about to say. Damn, that's about. So, but in all seriousness, though, like, I never was a RJ Harvey's going to be a 270 carry guy. Like, I don't think that's where the bread is buttered for a Sean Payton, for a Sean Payton back. I mean, if you're talking about, Reggie Bush was outstanding in the pass catching role, and he just was subpar as a runner. I think RJ Harvey has a chance to be more than adequate as a runner, and, like, as you alluded to earlier, and take more of the lion's share of the passing game. This kind of concrete cement foundations the fact that I feel like RJ Harvey's going to catch at least 60 passes this year. And that's where, I mean, one, a target is more valuable than a touch. And so I'm firmly on that. Is he going to lose some goal line work to J.K. Dobbins? Potentially. Is J.K. Dobbins going to have games where he gets like 23 or 24 carries? Absolutely. But that was going to happen whether it was spread between RJ Harvey and Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin, or if it was just going to be J.K. Dobbins, like, handling the majority of the early down work and probably in the low red zone. So I'm perfectly fine with this signing. I could care less. That J.K. Dobbins is here. I think that I think people are going to react because that's our natural. We live in a microwave society now. Everybody's got to have an opinion. And my opinion is that my opinion didn't change of RJ Harvey. So that's the long and short of it. And like I said, if you are using this to say, hey, well, we have, we assume that the rookies are going to go in and get the lion's share of the carry. It's like, well, it's not just that. It's just that RJ Harvey's more dynamic than every other running back they have. And beyond that, he's probably the best pass catcher that's on the roster now too. So yeah, like I said, my opinion is that my opinion didn't change.
Yeah, no, I like those last 2 points, because that was kind of what I was going to get back to. When you look at 24, you see the targets, are mostly to Javonte, but the snap percentage and attempts kind of go through a bunch of guys, because Javonte wasn't super effective with it. And then when they had P. Ryan and Jaleel in 23, I think you see more of like that dispersal of how it went, instead of 3 or 4 guys, or maybe even 5 guys if you want to count Beatty in there. It's probably 2 or 3 that they go through. Jaleel gets some scraps here and there. It's JK and it's Harvey. And that's kind of the way I see it. And yeah, there are going to be games where J.K. Dobbins has the better fantasy performance. That's just, kind of the way I think that's going to shake out. And that's the kind of the way that I always saw it shaking out. So I think we're pretty similar on there. And you had pointed to Jason Hall's comment here of assuming that rookies walk in the building and take for the vets. Like, obviously, I think the coach in this position, the other guy was talking about Bijan. I mean, that was a silly maneuver by them by giving Algier that much love. But Algier was a pretty good player and still is a pretty good player, right? Now they've since righted the ship and give Bijan lion's share of what's going on. So yeah, I mean, but Sean Payton has always kind of run his offense like this, and I think he's got a plan for Harvey, and I don't think that plan has really changed all that much. So,
if Javonte was still good, Javonte would still be in a Broncos uniform handling most of those touches, but he just hasn't been efficient since the injury.
Right.
This is Sean Payton's attempt to solve that particular problem that you have as an offense, and like adding guys that can create explosive plays.
Right. No, I agree, man. I like all that stuff there. So let's keep it moving. Let's shoot over to Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. And let's talk about Rodgers, and then we can have a conversation about DK Metcalf and what this does for that offense, right? A lot of people upset with Aaron Rodgers. Pittsburgh people don't want Aaron Rodgers because, hey, it's just a cycle of, are we going to win a playoff game? Shouldn't we just get a higher draft pick? Yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's not what the guys in that locker room and the veterans on that team, what they want to do. And
it's really guys with jobs,
right? Yeah. It's really as simple as that, right? In this hypothetical world that we live in, and the Steelers aren't really an organization that's going to tear things down and just tank and be awful. That's just really not how they've ever gone about their business, or at least as far as I can remember, right? So you bring Aaron Rodgers in, and I don't know what you're going to do in year 2. Maybe Rodgers is great this year and you sign him up for another year. I have no idea, but you got to kind of figure it out. So from a fan perspective, I can understand why you're a little upset with the Aaron Rodgers signing, of saying, I just want to stink essentially and see what happens. But I mean, at the end of the day, Rodgers comes in and you're taking a big home run cut for getting in the playoffs and maybe getting hot at the right time. Look, Aaron Rodgers got hurt the previous year before this. He's an older guy with an Achilles injury. Like, back half of the football from Aaron Rodgers that we were seeing was pretty solid. There's a big stigma with how much everybody hates Aaron Rodgers, the human, at this point. And I get it, man. Whatever. His taste is not for everyone. I don't mind him as much as the next guy. Like, I'm okay with him doing what he does. Like, is what it is. I think this is pretty solid for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. I think they haven't had this is the best quarterback they've had in a minute. And I think the back half of what we've seen from Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform, if he can play to that level, then I think this team has a good chance of being half decent, right?
I agree.
So
I've been very vocal about this for quite some time now. Like, one of my first appearances on here, I was like, this is probably going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I would rather see Aaron Rodgers just kind of ride off in the sunset. But here we are. He's a Pittsburgh Steeler now. And I thought it was going to be George Pickens and DK Metcalf. It turns out it's going to be DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth. I fully expect both of them to probably have as close to a career high in touchdowns. Like, that is, I mean, he's one of the most accurate passers of football of all time. I don't think he's lost a little bit. And it's, the little bit that makes you the quarterback that can get a team that's supposed to win 6 games to win like 12 games. Mm-hmm. But if you surround him with the right stuff and, give him the right pieces, I think that this is, he can toe the Steelers company line of 9-8 or get you into a playoff win if they get hot, like you alluded to. It seems for the last few years that the Steelers have been just waiting for a quarterback. Like, everything else is there, and they're waiting for a quarterback to step into the, Ghost of Big Ben role and carry them to prominence again. I don't know that they're that. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is going to do that. I don't think it's a stylistic fit from, his personality to the way that they've played offense. And, I was reading something the other day about Tomlin not allowing Fields or Russell Wilson to check. And that's like Aaron Rodgers' number one thing. That's why they're so low in pace of play every single year. or excuse me, an Aaron Rodgers team is dead last in pace of play almost every year over year since like 2016 or somewhere along those lines, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is still probably one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the league. Full stop, no equivocations. I do not know how this works from a political perspective, for lack of a better term, like the inside the building politics, the shaking hands, kissing babies that you have to do when you're the quarterback of a cornerstone organization like the Steelers. But I mean, at this point, they're so horny, like, to just have a really good team that they'll probably take anything. If he wins, he'll be, they'll crown him. But right. I just don't know what the ceiling is, especially
winning fixes all those problems, right? Everybody can, regardless of which side you fit on with kind of where you think Nick Bosa lies, guys in that locker room have different opinions of how Nick Bosa does, but it's never an issue in that locker room because they're usually pretty good, right? So, politically, as far as where Aaron Rodgers lies, like, he could certainly ruffle some feathers, but I think in the building, in the locker room, if you can win, I would assume that in the locker room, he's probably not a terrible guy, right? No. He's probably not terrible to deal with. And again, winning elixir kind of fixes everything. So Rodgers, I think, breathes life into this offense. The big part to me now is you have DK Metcalf here, right? There isn't a whole lot of other options, and there aren't a whole lot of other options out there. Don't really understand the Jonnu trade talks that were going on there for a minute. That doesn't make any sense to me. You could just use Freiermuth, unless you're just going to use a lot of 12 and Jonnu like in the slot, maybe. I don't know. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Right now, you have guys like Keenan Allen out there and Amari Cooper out there, right? So, right. One of those guys could, but those guys clearly, Devontae Adams still has the juice. Those other two guys look like they had lost a little bit of juice, right? At least to me. We haven't seen
Keenan, maybe not so much, but
yeah,
Amari, yes.
Right.
Amari looked like he wanted to go home and be a family man.
Yeah. So I don't know if those two solve any big problems for you. But where that does lead me to is, we can talk about all the other ancillary pieces there and who's going to step up and who's going to do what. Now, I happen to think that, if you're buying low stakes on that offense, it's Roman Wilson. You probably have a different opinion. But I think that's the guy that they're going to be looking to kind of step up if nothing else happens, right? But
it's yeah. Obviously, I'm on the Calvin
Austin side. Sure.
Yeah, but
and we've in a Patreon episode we talked about this a little bit, and we got a pie to the face. Who's the Steelers wide receiver 2 coming into the season, and then who scores more points?
Yes,
for that. So a 2 for there. But getting back to DK Metcalf here, like, is DK Metcalf like just grossly under valued right now? As far as you saw
something, and
I saw Wilson.
I haven't figured out what yet.
You saw Garrett Wilson last year have almost a 30% target share weeks 1 through 6, right? Essentially almost the same thing going on in New York. Like, Tyler Conklin was the other option, who was having some good weeks, right? And then weeks 7 through 18, Devontae Adams has a 28% target share with Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson on the field, and Garrett Wilson has a 22% target share, right? So is DK Metcalf going to come out here and have a 30% target share? And just, regardless of what you think about DK Metcalf, like, Rodgers is going to get it to the guy he thinks is best suited to get the job done for him, right? Like,
yes.
Who else could it possibly be? And Pat Freiermuth could be that guy, but just placing all that volume on the, like I said, Conklin was pretty good with when it was just him and when it was just Garrett Wilson and Conklin. He was having some good games in there. But I mean, I don't know who you could possibly bring in here to really make a big difference. So, like, where do you fall on the scale of DK Metcalf right
now? So I have trouble with DK Metcalf because I think the idea of DK Metcalf has surpassed, we never adjusted our expectations from 2020 for DK Metcalf. Like, the ADP has finally, but we never adjusted our expectations. And just when I was ready to be out, I might be back in. Like I said, I haven't decided Like, I got to really sit down and crunch the numbers and decide how I feel about this, because if he is going to get a 30% target share from Aaron Rodgers, it's going to end up being really good, like high-end wide receiver 2 range, because, off the bat, he's going to score more touchdowns because Aaron Rodgers is really good at throwing touchdowns. Like accurate throws in the red zone, those back shoulder fades, like the high point, like the apex point balls. DK Metcalf 6'3" with a 40-inch vertical. Like, he's going to feast on those. Pat Fryermuth's going to feast over the middle. Robert Tonyan had 11 touchdowns with Aaron Rodgers. Now you can say, oh yeah, it was in 2019 or
Bobby
2020, whatever it was. Yeah. So those two guys are going to feast. And I think that their values where they're at right now, I don't know. I don't know what it ends up looking like from a volume perspective, because we've never seen an Arthur Smith offense target a receiver more than 117 times. And it was Drake London, either his rookie or second year. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers would need to have some sort of autonomy, and we should see that, right? We should see Aaron Rodgers have more command of the offense. But as I alluded to earlier, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields weren't allowed to check out of plays at the line of scrimmage. And that's just, if that's going to be happening, then we just do our normal projections for an Arthur Smith offense.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some Arthur Smiths overridden with Aaron Rodgers here. So I think you can throw some of the old Artie Smith stuff at it. So, them boys are probably going to be having some words behind the scenes here and there, I would assume. Obviously Rodgers, it's definitely going to be an interesting fit, because I don't think Rodgers is going to be down with some of the things. So they're going to have to kind of meet in the middle. And I think at least Rodgers should garner some of that respect. Like, you can't bring Rodgers in here, like you were saying, not going to let those guys check. Like, Rodgers isn't coming to town if he's not saying, I can't make my own checks, right? I just can't imagine that's happening, right? So I think you're going to see a slight shift of kind of what we've seen from Artie in the past, the skeleton of it, and then him and Rodgers coming in here and kind of reinventing a little bit of what he does. I don't think Rodgers signs up if that's, if he can't have a little bit more influence on exactly kind of what they're doing. So, but yeah, DK Metcalf right now, and our ADP is going in the 7th round. That's not adjusted. We don't have new ADP since that trade, or since Rodgers has signed. I always felt that this was going to kind of happen. But now that it's actually happened, I feel like there is probably a round jump at least for George Pickens, or rather DK Metcalf, right?
Easy. I mean, so like you say, the 7th round. I just, as always, I'm in a startup, and he went in the 6th round here. So it's going to go, and it's going to go quick.
Yeah, I think him and George Pickens probably moved up a little bit, both of them. So, would you rather have DK Metcalf or Jalen Waddle?
I was always on the DK Metcalf side of that.
Okay.
How
about Chris Olave or DK Metcalf? Like, kind of,
it's got to be DK Metcalf now.
Almost both fake alphas, sort of.
Yeah, I mean that's.
But I think Olave could land in the similar position where he's just getting crushed with target share. Now, I think if he gets crushed with target share, it might be a little. I would almost.
Like, what is a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers target worth versus what's Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck's target worth?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm still gonna bet on old man ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's tough. That's tough.
I would like to be way more. I'd like to be way more bullish, because Aaron Rodgers is one of my favorite players. I don't like. I've seen the Arthur Smith offense. Mm-hmm. Like, when you don't have a running back that can run for 2,000 yards, and AJ Brown, and
they got one. Yeah. They got one, dog. His name's Caleb Johnson. He looks good in black and gold already.
Wowzers.
They got one. Don't you worry. Don't you worry about it.
We'll see if he's more Rashard Mendenhall, or if he's more along the lines of Jalen Samuels.
Jalen Samuels. That's a good pull. That's a good pull. He's not Jalen Samuels. Just calm down. All right. All right.
Saw Jalen Samuels taking snaps in the UFL the other day, man. Glad to see he's still going after it.
Yeah. Is that NC State?
Yeah.
So I think DK, are you selling DK? Would you sell DK for like any first right now? Because I know last year I was struggling to get any firsts for DK Metcalf, just like kind of in mid season last year, few leagues I was trying to get off of DK for a first, couldn't get it. Would you take the first right now for DK? Or
if you are a middling to bottom tier team, you sell for any first that you can, and understand that you're probably going to lose that trade in 2025.
Right.
You're going to lose that trade until you make your selection or turn that pick into whatever assets that you want to turn it into. But like, you got to be comfortable knowing that you're probably going to lose that trade if Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf link up for 17 games.
Yeah. Our boy
Gross.
Dynasty Football Key, shout out to you. He says, how will Rodgers impact Caleb Johnson's numbers? I think what it does is it gets you a chance to have not quite as stuffed boxes as you've seen teams against Pittsburgh maybe be able to do. And some of that is a testament to kind of how Pittsburgh runs what they do. A lot of loaded boxes, but Rodgers, I think, can soften that up. I mean, again, we've seen the Arthur Smith kind of offense, but even last year, we saw Najee, I think, had 263 attempts, right? At a 50, just above 50% attempt share, or snap share rather, or I forget. I was just looking at it a minute ago, but yeah, no, I think this is good for my Caleb Johnson picks. It's hopefully Rodgers is a Caleb Johnson fan. That's how I'll kind of look at that.
If he figures out pass protecting or getting out of the backfield to get out into the pattern and get out, like, be a safety valve like that, oh man, like that's Aaron Jones has had some very valuable seasons just being able to do that for Aaron Rodgers. And I think Caleb has shown us enough from a hands perspective, his best play being, a swing pass that he just stiff-armed a dude in the upside down and scored from like 70. Like, he can catch passes. How effective he is, like, is he going to be like a plus level pass catcher? I don't know, but he can catch passes, and Aaron Rodgers will target the running back.
Yeah, and they were mid pack to low pack, like 19th, I think, in a lot of explosive metrics too. So I think you can improve that with Rodgers plus Caleb Johnson in there. Minus this, who's this? Mono Mitch. What do we got here? Mono Mitch.
Yeah, we're all aware of the slow pace.
We know about the slow pace. That's okay. For me and the Caleb Johnson there, as long as if we're moving the ball, that's a positive, right? If we can collect some first downs, keep the offense on the field, that's some positives for me. So, all right, let's keep it moving here. You got anything else on DK or Aaron Rodgers here?
No, it just gives him a chance to go from being like a bottom 7 offense to like maybe middle of the pack, maybe higher potentially.
Yeah. I haven't gotten them redraft streets yet, but I'm definitely way more interested in DK Metcalf. So I'm interested to see where his ADP lies right now for the redraft situation. We're getting in the best ball streets pretty heavy on the Patreon. We're trying to figure out the best balls because it's not been a best ball operation, but we're having some fun over there. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you check over the FFD Patreon. We got extra episodes over there, at least one a week. We've been doing more than one a week. We got some good stuff on that side and premium content and mock drafts and ADPs and rankings for rookies. And we got Jason has put together a nice little rookie draft kit over there. If you haven't done your kit yet or your drafts yet, I'm a later kind of guy. We just did a bunch of FFD drafts. Me and Big Co are going to do an episode review in that here on Thursday. So make sure you check that out. And again, tomorrow we'll be live again doing our mock draft, Dynasty Superflex startup. So make sure you're keeping it locked and loaded and hit that subscribe button. So, all right, let's keep it moving here. Let's go. Nick Chubb signing with the Texans. How you feeling about it? What's that do for you? What's that do for your Mixons? What's that do for your Woody Marks? I know you're loaded up with Woody Marks, Chev.
I mean, I got so much Woody Marks. I had to go get a storage unit, bro. Nah, I'm kidding.
If you don't know, Chev hates Woody Marks.
I don't hate Woody Marks. I just said I think LaQuint Allen is better. That's where I'm at. So I'm confused by this because it's a very similar situation for both backs. I mean, obviously Mixon got banged up. Maybe this is just insurance in case Mixon gets banged up again. You don't want to trot out what's Dare Agumbawale and Cam Akers for whatever stint of games that Joe Mixon misses for whatever reason this year. So I don't think that it does anything. I think that Mixon still showed that he had a ton of juice, and Chubb kind of showed us the opposite coming off of that horrible knee injury. And so I'm willing to take a shot where Nick Chubb is going ADP wise. Like I don't mind that by any stretch. Like you knew he was going to get signed by a team. He's too good not to, even though he wasn't great last year. But that offensive line was in shambles. We'll see. There's a lot of question marks with the Texans offensive line. They did take, I believe, Ariante Ursary to bolster the loss of Laramie Tunsil. I almost called him a gas mask guy. But yeah, they did take Ariante Ursary to stop that. You think Allen has is better or has higher? Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. Yes. Yes. That's what I was saying. We had the conversation offline, and it's made its way into the deal. So yeah, I don't really think that it affects much of anything, mostly because of the fact that this is kind of insurance so that you have somebody that you feel like you can count on. Now we might get in a training camp and it might be over. It might be time for Nick Chubb to go home and be a family man, like I've been suggesting some of these other guys do. But there's a possibility that he still has juice left, and this is a late stage audition for him to go get another 1-year contract somewhere else next year.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been prolific from coming back from injuries. The training videos look really good from Chubb. I think, like you said, I think this is, hey, we haven't had a backup that we feel excellent about coming off the bench, and we've been trying, right? Pierce had a shimmer of hope. I love Dameon Pierce. I don't think Dameon Pierce ever fit the scheme super great, especially once the dude from the Niners came in for that last year or two. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Talking about Slowick?
Yeah, Bobby Slowick. I don't think that was the best fit ever.
The issue though is like 40 carries last year for Pierce. He averaged 7 yards a carry. Now, granted, I don't know how much of that was buoyed by the 92-yard touchdown in week 18.
I'm sure some. I'm sure a lot.
But like he looked like rookie year Dameon Pierce again.
Yeah. I think if you put him on like just like an old school traditional just power smash mouth kind of situation, I think it's a much better fit than kind of that Slowick coming from the McShanahan outside zone-ish, more schemed up kind of run game. I don't know if that's exactly what they were doing, but I know that for sure it's not just like man on man.
Yeah, it's more like gap. Yeah, it's more gap based as opposed to being like the sweeping wide zone that Shanahan and all them had. McShanahan, like you said, I like McShanahan. I'm gonna steal that, but I don't think that this is a scheme fit. I think that he bounced back well last year, so I wouldn't even count him. I've been stealing him at the end of drafts just in case.
Chubb?
No, Dameon Pierce.
Oh, Dameon Pierce. Yeah, if it's a super
Chubb goes
league,
before Dameon Pierce. Undrafted, like unsigned, unemployed Nick Chubb goes before Dameon Pierce in startup drafts.
Yeah, Mana Mitch says there's an alleged rumor that Mixon had off-season surgery. Maybe so. Maybe you can get Chubb's coming off an injury. I wasn't counting too much on Woody Marks being a thing this year. I was mostly like, hey, we could get some passing game work. My whole thing with Woody Marks was a very good pass catcher. And I don't think that changes all that much. My feelings on what Woody Marks could be in this offense, right? But now you get, somebody had mentioned it above there. I don't remember who, but you get the advantage of seeing Mixon and Chubb come to work every day from Woody Marks. Now Woody Marks is almost as old as both of those guys already in his rookie season.
That's a crazy straight to catch, man.
But no, so your Woody shares. I mean, there were late shares that you picked up. I mean, if you were drafting him anywhere in the second round, you're crazy. He was late third guy and a fourth guy. I'm glad to touch on him. Really good pass catcher. and he said I was drafting Woody as a backup in case Mixon went down. I don't know that I was necessarily viewing him as direct backup kind of guy. I was viewing him as satellite kind of guy, right? And I didn't know how much the role would change even if Mixon went down. But that was just my interpretation of kind of how that was going. So Chubb seems like more of a direct backup for, and some pacing of Mixon, who's missed times and had some soft tissue issues throughout his career. So that's the kind of way that I see that situation. Damian Pierce getting a little bit of love. I love it.
No, man, like I said, I think that it's just so that they don't have to roll out Dare Gumbawale, and like Damian Pierce was hurt last year too for big stretches. So I think it's just so that they've kind of fortified the early down back in the event that one of them misses time for some reason. And of course, I mentioned this before, but they have an out in Joe Mixon's contract after this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
what up?
It's kind of frustrating, but it's cool. We're gonna get 2025 Nick Chubb on an NFL field.
Yeah, and there'll probably be a fun run here or there for old Chubb. What up, TPTB? How you doing? Appreciate you. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. We're going to maybe try to make, maybe some live stuff like this throughout the summer, talking news and notes and training camp and all those kind of vibes. More of a thing, get a little more football talk going on in the show. We're going to maybe be busting out a football show that's more directed at football, a little less at fantasy, interweaving the two. All right. Stroud, any concern?
No. Like, you've been throwing probably sparingly. Like, these dudes aren't throwing the amount of passes that they have to throw, like for their off-season training programs and protocols. Like, they're not throwing the amount of passes that they have to throw during OTAs and minicamp and stuff. And so, yeah, you're gonna get sore. That's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
It takes a little while. Like, there's no reason you're not winning the fucking Super Bowl in June. So, like, if he says he's sore, let him chill out for a little bit.
Yeah. Go Jen asks if Stroud had surgery. I don't know. Maybe he had a cleanup that nobody knows about. I have no idea.
Maybe Go Jen's breaking some news for us right now.
Maybe
I don't think he didn't have any. There's no like ailments.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just, to me, I mean, dynasty wise, I'm not terribly concerned about it. There were some questions about this in the Patreon, whether you're worried about Stroud's arm right now. Like, maybe redraft, I'm monitoring a little bit more. Dynasty, if there's a dip, I'll buy. Like, I'm not worried about long-term career. Like, I use the analogy of, like, remember when Joe Burrow couldn't pick up a water bottle because he used his other hand and that wrist was still bothering him, and then he went on to be fucking awesome in this past season. Like, we get so caught up in all this minutia. I just think that a lot of it is just, all right, man, let's just relax. And think about this like semi-logically, right? And then you have Twitter doctors coming in, which, don't get me fucking started on Twitter doctors. Maybe my least favorite people in existence on Twitter, at least for football side of things. I'm like, I can't stop it. And then just the worst, just grifting.
It's dope that we get it's dope that we have as much access as we do. Like, we dreamed about this back in like 06. I started playing in 07. Like, I dreamed about having a 24-hour news cycle, just wanting to know everything I possibly could about players. But now we live in an era where you have to figure out what's signal and what's noise. Or like, if you've never been around a game before, you're like, well, CJ Stroud sore after a couple practices, and it's like, yeah, man, he hasn't probably thrown the 300 passes that he throws during a session, just warm-ups, doing all that. Probably hadn't done that in like 2 or 3 months, maybe more, 4 months, 5 months.
Or maybe in the last month he's been throwing the dog shit out of the ball, and he was like, I need to pump the brakes here. You know what I mean? And just hadn't done it a lot before that.
Right.
I think there's a lot of things going on here.
There's just 10 different ways to not overreact to this. So all we're cautioning you to do is just to take this news with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. Now, if he opens up training camp and he can't throw, that's a different story.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Trenton says 8 hours ago he's thrown again. So there we are. And I think we could put the T-Law thing kind of in the same category, right?
Same thing.
Not terribly concerned about this.
No.
So
I mean, like he had the surgery in like December, and he was already participating in the OTAs. It just said a sleeve for soreness, which I don't really. That's not for me to understand. Like, yes, their offensive line sucks. We know. Like it's hopefully it's a little bit better.
Yeah, they had kind of alluded to some locker room chemistry was kind of why they shook that thing up a little bit. So we shall see. Some strange moves from the offensive line perspective from Houston. Sometimes the best addition is subtraction, and sometimes
that's a great
sometimes
point.
that subtraction is just that subtraction. It doesn't get any better.
Sometimes it just you lose Trent Williams, and shit's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
Like, so that's one of the units that has to be on the same page. So if there's one guy just kind of doing their own thing and not really following the protections, or not, not chipping or not sliding when he's supposed to, slide. And this is a Laramie Tunsil thing. So maybe it doesn't apply as much. It applies more to guards. But if he's not holding up his end of the bargain, like, it's going to fuck the other four guys over. And so if that's a consistent theme, and he's one of the most penalized linemen in the league last year, talent-wise, there's no question. Yeah, he makes an offensive line better. But if he's doing his own thing, then yes, like we could, it could be a little bit better because you have five guys working as a unit as opposed to like 4 and 1, which will never work. Right.
All right. Last arm talk for quarterbacks of this episode. Hey, Rich, this one's probably a little more concerning for multiple reasons, right? Had already previously had surgery on this. Now he's missing a little bit of time. This is somebody who needs all the time, right? The big thing for me with Richardson what was he doing in the offseason? Was he working? There was some talk about him being with Josh Allen. Did he get humbled? Is he ready? Is he ready to come in here and work his ass off? That's TBD. I don't really know. I was hoping we would get some answers throughout this section. Now, how long he's on the shelf is pretty important here. Me and Big D and Doug in the Patreon on Sunday had a conversation about this, and Big D had a really good point. Like, and we see this all the time. Is it almost, and if A-Raj doesn't, or if A Rich doesn't start, people, the A Rich haters are going to be out in full force, whether it's injury or not. But is it almost better for A Rich to not start for them and come off the bench in like week 8? To me, the answer is unequivocally yes. Instead of having every single thing that happens on Sundays be under an effing microscope, and every time he makes a mistake, he's looking behind him, being the hero is so much easier than being the guy that was like, hey, we're counting on you. This is it. This is your last opportunity, or you're probably going to be playing for a different team. I don't know. I thought that was a really good kind of point of view to look at that, because at the end of the day, yes, Daniel Jones, this is a pretty decent situation to be walking into for any quarterback that actually can play the position of quarterback. To me, Anthony Richardson just needs to make the layups, and if he makes the layups, a lot of this goes away. They were already almost winning a decent amount of games last year with the up and down play of Richardson. So maybe you don't see Richardson at all if Daniel Jones gets a chance, but more than likely, there's enough people who think Daniel Jones is trash to get upset with Daniel Jones really quick after a few errant throws. So what's your perspective here?
Okay, so let me start piece by piece. So first thing, I do think it would be really cool for him to be able to sit behind Daniel Jones, kind of get the Bryce Young, like, hey, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's really analyze like what's going on, what you're seeing, and help you process what's going on. The problem is everybody in that building is, if your name isn't Irsay, Gordon, or Irsay, like, everybody's job's on the line. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the long and short of it.
Death of the owner is certainly puts another interesting spin on this whole thing. And the is the GM, is he out of there? Ballard and him maybe had a little
Yeah, like that's so Jim Irsay's super loyal.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably why he understood, like, hey, you hadn't had much to work with. Like, we tried different quarterbacks. That's not always going to work. I think the patient approach could be a good approach, but also, like, at some point, you've got to turn, like, it's like having a bunch of picks and then you're always like just constantly acquiring more picks. At some point, those picks have to become players. At some point, you've got to overcome the fact that, like, we haven't had a quarterback. You took one 4th overall, man. Like, it has to happen, or you're going to have to find a new job. Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at with Shane Steichen. That's where we're at with, with Chris Ballard. That's where we're at with Anthony Richardson. None of these people are going to be employed by the Indianapolis Colts if this team doesn't go the right way. Now, moving on to the actual football part where he's hurt again, I don't really know what to expect. I actually, like I said, I hadn't considered the fact that, like, maybe he should just sit down for a while, because we've both been in the camp of like, nah, this motherfucker needs to play, and he needs to play a lot. He needs to play a lot. Like, he has to learn the mental gymnastics of the position, because he hasn't started enough games. You've heard me say that a bunch of times. I like quarterbacks that have started enough games in college. He started 13. He started 13 for my favorite team, so I got to watch him a lot. And so that was not the best experience. So him going 4th, and then about the athleticism, but again, that only goes so far. If Lamar was just an athlete, the shit wouldn't work. He's a good quarterback, and he's processing at a higher level than ever before. That's what we need to see. Josh Allen was a superior athlete that had to learn how to process. So I don't love this. For my initial take was that I don't love this because of the fact that I want him to get as many reps as possible.
Right.
And here's the deal. Once Daniel Jones does anything, let's say that they go 3-1 or 2-2 through the first month of the season, there's zero fucking chance that they're going to go back to Anthony Richardson at that point.
Yeah. I mean, but wheels fall off or whatever, or maybe an injury or whatever, but yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly interesting, and it's not great for your Anthony Richardson, because we need him to be in there getting as much time and effort and works. It's time to give up. Yeah, I put that up there already. For me, I don't think so. Like, it's the same thing as always. Like, he just hadn't played a whole lot. He went in there, he fucked up last year. The thing that I really liked about him is one, obviously they put this tremendous amount of draft capital on him. So that really makes you go, all right, well, whether or not I love this guy or not, they've got a lot of draft capital on him. He's probably going to play and get a long leash here at some point, right? And, if it was more like a Lamar situation where he gets drafted near the back half of the first, you might be like, all right, well, we can let that guy sit for a while. We can develop him, yada, yada, yada. But then you get the fun rookie year from him, and it's like, all right, well, if we could just figure this out a little bit and get better. And then we didn't see him put the work in it, and it looked like he was a worker and a really, really smart, cerebral kind of guy, and that just hadn't panned out. And then on top of that, you had Steichen, who had already developed 2 good quarterbacks in, he got his hands on Herbert, he got his hands on Hurts. Like, look, Anthony Richardson probably has more talent than Jalen Hurts does. Jalen Hurts is just a working motherfucker,
in terms of his athletic ability and probably his arm talent, yes. But that's where I said you got to learn the mental gymnastics of the position. Right. You've got to, like, there's no motherfucker that's more fortified mentally than Jalen Hurts. Like, you go lose,
right?
You lose your
Complete
job
opposite of Richardson.
The whole country, yes.
Yeah.
In the national championship, then you go rebuild yourself to being the Heisman runner-up. Then you get disrespected and go second round. Like, the paths are so different, and it's just, you have to see some of that intertesticular fortitude from Anthony Richardson to really feel like you got to really, like, I need to see him, like, overcome some shit for me to believe that he's, like, beat the allegations that you can't be a starting NFL quarterback.
Right.
Just come out and play. Just complete 60% of your passes. Do the easy stuff.
Right. Exactly. Layups. Come in and work, baby. Come in and work. Get the layups. You get the layups, I think you buy yourself a little bit more time. All right.
I mean, it's really dumb. It's just really dumb what we do with quarterbacks now in the first place. Like, there was no reason that he should have been playing like as a rookie, but
No.
but now we're me, myself included, we're all like, fuck it, he can't play. Let's throw him in the trash. We did the same thing with Bryce Young.
Yeah. Oh, we do this really quickly. And now I do think we've actually been seeing, a process of some bounce backs that do say, all right, well, the NFL does a terrible job of developing quarterbacks. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Like, the Steelers haven't done a great job of figuring out how to develop somebody behind somewhere and drafting and developing guys, right? I don't think the NFL does. Like, there's a couple of camps that do this, and we've seen it. Canales looks like he might be one of them, right? We looked at, he kind of did it with Baker, then he came in and seems like he's doing it with Bryce. The Niners have done it with, a little bit of Sam Darnold. And then, by the way, you went over to KOC. So, like, the KOCs, the McVays, which, by the way, McVay touched Baker before, no did he, before Canales, so there does seem to be some camps that understand it. Now you're like, look, Mac Jones is getting a chance to be over there with Kyle Shanahan right now. If Mac Jones plays in a Kyle Shanahan offense, Mac Jones is a top 24 quarterback, man.
Easy.
And I don't care what you think about Mac Jones, but, like, are you saying easy because you agree with me or easy because that's a reach?
No, easy because it's going to fucking happen, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
not that I think he will. Obviously, they just signed Purdy, but I'm just saying, like, this is
great
for Mac Jones.
The reason that they keep these retread first-round quarterbacks is because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are like, hey, you think you can coach this guy? Yeah, I can make it work. It's like, I know enough about what I've seen from him to make it work. So if it can work with Nick Mullins for multiple games, it can work with Mac Jones. Like, yeah. It's not, I forget, like, how did we even get to Mac Jones? But you were saying, like, hey, like, let's temper the expectations on, like, writing some of these dudes off. But right. Still,
Geno Smith.
Yes. You get with someone who believes in you. First of all, you're good enough to be a professional athlete. Let's get that out there. So the talent is not the question. It's here where you have to, like, you've got to get it figured out. Yeah. Like, because everybody's good, and you have to figure out how you're going to consistently create an advantage over somebody that probably is more talented than you on a down in, down out basis.
Yeah. We got a good drop here. I just took it off the screen. Had it on the screen. I agree about Mac. I think he's the same as Sam Howell. Like, Sam Howell's a good example. Like, I'm going to put Sam Howell on the back end of Mac Jones, and Sam Howell are getting drafted for me right now on the back end of Superflex drafts deep, because it's the same thing. Sam Howell's had some promise there. Just, wasn't excellent, but he got thrown into a terrible, like, the Redskins, or the Commanders rather, were just an awful organization until last year. And now you get to go over to KOC for a year or however long. I think where was Howell? Seattle before that?
Yeah.
Very, very interesting there. I like that kind of stuff. Follow some breadcrumbs.
Malik Willis, make sure we talked about it last night on Patreon, but, like, Malik Willis is another one of those guys too.
Yeah. Malik. All right. Let's talk about James Cook real quick. Contract issue. Thoughts, comments, concerns. We don't have to, really. I just figured it's not a good when you don't come in, depending on how long this lasts and you don't come in, it definitely is gonna, it's gonna continue to drop him down the boards for me for any format of just, like, if you're not there. I feel like we've seen it over and over and over again when you forfeit a lot of this camp and then you try to come in there, whether it's injury or just seemingly not taking a while to get right and moving around and in lockstep with the rest of your team, doesn't seem to be in your favor.
Yeah, the run. Did you see this?
Caleb Daniels, he says, thoughts on Eddie Royal and Brandon Lloyd.
That's a throwback. But no, my thing. So we're pretty much lockstep. Like, this is not real news. Here's the deal: if he starts missing camp days, he gets fined about $100,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on a second-round rookie contract. He can't afford to get fined $100,000 a day. So I'll start paying attention I'll start paying attention when that happens.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm fading him. I don't want to be early to the James Cook party anymore. I've been banging that drum since he was a rookie. But at this point, like if he's won $20 million a year or to be a top 3 paid running back, like I'm not in on that. And I'm not as bullish on him in Buffalo with the missed time because they don't throw him passes. They don't throw him enough passes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested to see with Cook. We've kind of talked a lot about Cook over this offseason and is kind of what was kind of a sell for us both a little bit of just kind of, maybe it might be even better if he does go somewhere else. If I'm Buffalo though, I try to figure out how to like just maybe give him a raise for a year and then let him go somewhere else. So I want to finish tonight off with maybe just talking about any buzz that you've seen on some names to kind of know. Caleb Daniels, as far as thoughts on Eddie Royal and Brandon Lloyd, man, I appreciate the love here. I was actually big fans of both guys. That
rookie season, Eddie Royal paired with Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall, maybe was that?
Yeah, it was Brandon Marshall.
Yeah,
like he was. I mean, he had like 100 something catches or like 90 something catches as a rookie. It was awesome. So, and then Brandon Lloyd, did Brandon Lloyd have his best season as a Bronco? Was he making all his crazy sideline Spider-Man catches and shit?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can look it up real quick. Maybe, but I know he was.
While you're looking that up, I'll talk about a couple guys that we haven't really talked about that are, popping in the Twitter streets. One being Dante Thornton. Somebody asked us a question about him earlier. You saw the hype from Chip Kelly talking about how he's not just whatever his route tree was at the University of Tennessee. We've got to stop labeling those dudes as just like one-trick ponies just because Josh Heupel chooses to play offense that way. So Dante Thornton, 6'5", 205, 4'3", averaged 25 yards a catch. We talked about him on a couple late-round stashes episodes. And I think that he has a chance for a real role. Obviously, we know how the pecking order goes. We know that, it's going to be it's Brock Bowers first, probably Brock Bowers second, then Jacoby Myers, and then, you got Jack Best there. But I think the guy that I would be looking to grab in best ball would probably be Dante Thornton because of the big play propensity and his ability, the ability to be 6'5" and run a 4.3. So I think that he's going to be a stud. And then Efton Chisholm. Efton Chisholm. So I've been stashing him.
Corncob pipe.
Yeah. He actually came over on the Mayflower.
Wears powdered wigs, smokes a corncob pipe.
So I didn't know very much about him until, and I still don't know a ton, but I saw some reps from the Shrine Bowl, and he was consistently separating from dudes in one-on-ones. I mean, like cooking, like setting up routes, stemming, doing all. And then one thing that I like is when I hear like things that they were good at, that I saw that they were good at. I like hearing the NFL coaches talk about that. So he talked about how well Efton Chisholm's gone about his work. He's been consistent. Drake May talked about how great of a mini camp or whatever it was that they just finished up. Is it OTAs or is it mini camp?
It's OTAs, right? The OTAs are starting today. I thought that was how that was going.
Or is it mini? Like, or do we say it backwards? I think we say it backwards.
Mini camp, maybe.
Yeah, mandatory mini camp. So all throughout OTAs, Efton Chisholm was standing out, doing really well. And I mean, Dustin and I, or Deku, whatever you want to call him from the Discord, talked about his ability, like just these guys, like some of these guys, like they're going to fall off the radar. I'm rambling. I'm going to just chill and let y'all just for a second reflect on Efton Chisholm and how he's going to be awesome. But
yeah. I like it. No, I saw some good Chisholm love out there. Jordan Watkins, San Francisco, getting a lot of love right now. That was one for me that I've seen everywhere. of Purdy really liking him. Got some good speed to his game. Definitely wasn't on my radar. So those are the kind of guys I think that I like to. We'll see what the role is. It's kind of wide open right now with BA and Pearsall kind of being potentially on the. I don't know how long Pearsall will be on the shelf. Didn't seem like super long.
Is it soft tissue for Pearsall right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anybody else you want to chat about before we wrap this thing up?
No, I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, Efton Chisholm, Dante Thornton. There was a couple other guys, but we'll hey, first of all, not this at all. Not that.
Not move over that. Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm, the third. Is he a third? Because if he's a third, he goes up even more in my book.
For sure he's Efton Chisholm, the fifth.
Yeah.
Like they haven't named anybody the firstborn son anything other than Efton since like 1686.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, you want to wrap this one up? Like I said, we will be Jalen Lane. I haven't heard anything about Lane. I haven't seen or heard anything. Have you, Chev?
Just like so, I think the GM was on McAfee like a month ago, and they talked about how excited they were to draft him in particular. They didn't think he would be available, being somewhat of a local kid and like all of the humanitarian efforts. So that's a guy that, I mean, his usage in college was very similar to Deebo Samuel, like the way that Deebo Samuel got used at his peak with the 49ers. So I don't know how it works this year, but I mean, he's really fast and, a really good person apparently, and runs a 4.3. So it's worth paying attention to. They took him in the fourth round and they seemed really excited about it.
A lot of these guys are free on your free agents or late fourth round draft.
For sure, Jalen Lane. Unless you do like a 6th round rookie draft, Jalen Lane's probably on waivers right now.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap this one up. We'll be live again tomorrow with startup mock like we usually do on Mondays. We move those because Big Co couldn't make it on Wednesdays, and so we wanted to do the mock. We want to do the roster review on Monday. And then me and Chev, and we're going to throw Doug in the mix for tomorrow. So make sure you come in, check that out. We're going to be doing a live Superflex tight end premium 3rd round reversal, 60-second per pick, 16 round Dynasty mock. And then we'll be firing up redraft mocks here. I believe as soon as next week, we're going to be launching a redraft channel. So we got a lot of stuff coming up, but for now, we're going to put that on the Dynasty channel and roll through some redraft mocks. So we've already been at work gathering ADP for that. So that'll be fun. And like I said, we're doing best ball drafts. So we'll be streaming best ball. We're figuring out behind the scenes so you guys don't have to sit through it. But we'll be streaming some best ball drafts. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow along. If you listen on the pod, 5 stars. Appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. Appreciate Caleb Daniels there with the big drop. Tune in again. I'll answer any questions you got, man. Appreciate you guys. Chev, anything on the way out?
No, man. This is really fun. Just kind of getting our thoughts out there as far as what's going on with OTAs. So
yeah, I think we're going to try to keep this kind of stuff going, doing just live reviews on news and kind of what's going on. So appreciate. Ed, I can see your comments. Don't worry about it. Next show is all Ed. I'll get you some good comments here. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you next time. Peace.